more titles there than Djokovic. So I don't think this was a bad showing for Nadal. Not a great one either. Kind of a bit so in the end. But much too soon to write him off as a threat for future hardcourt Grand Slams, especially in New York, where the conditions seem to suit him more.
And in the double sphere, we're losing those two kind of sets of legends there, the Brown brothers and Leander Paes. He's had a very long career, Damian, but finally kind of deciding to call it a day. He won a round, didn't he, with Jelena Ostapenko in the mixed doubles, but sad to see that he'll never play another Australian Open.
Sad to see, but it had to happen at some point. I think he's a fantastic ambassador for the sport. Also a very intelligent person. He's excellent at any broadcasting stuff. I mean, I've seen a lot of TV studios with him, and I think he's gonna make a career in that probably after he retires. Really, just a great person and a great. A great player to idolize for Indian kids. It's a shame that we actually have to see him go, but it had to happen at some point. Maybe also, I don't think you mentioned Carla Suarez Navarro. It was also her last Australian Open, and she also had a great showing. She's been in the quarters 3 times here before, I think. This year she drew Aryna Sabalenka in the first round, and she somehow managed to pull off that upset. She was also very good against Iga Świątek in the second round. So I think that was definitely a great way to say goodbye to the Australian crowd. She's gonna keep on playing until the end of 2020. So a lot of time to still catch up with her and watch her final professional matches.
And same with the Browns, of course. They'll make it to the US Open 2020, and that'll be their swan song as well. So taking the results that we've had in Australia and kind of any hints that we may have taken from the performances and the results, let's have a look at some of the kind of rest of the slams going forward. A few questions to you guys. Jim, first of all, can Team beat Nadal at Roland Garros?
He can. I don't know whether or not he will. I think last year he ran out of steam in the third and fourth sets. Not so much because the level of competition and intensity in the final so high, but because he'd played 5 days in a row leading into the final because of all the rain. He'd had the tougher draw with Djokovic in the semi-finals rather than Federer, so that counted against him. So I think a lot's going to depend on where whether he ends up in Nadal's half of the draw or Djokovic is assuming that those two are the top 2 seeds heading into Paris. He needs things to go his way. He needs to have the easier half of the draw than Nadal, because the pressure is very much going to be on him in the final should he get there. But I think he does have the game, so it's coming. Whether it's this year, I'm not sure, but he does look like the man to dethrone Nadal in the coming years, certainly.
This one's to you, Damian. This question was almost, is Djokovic going to win the calendar slam? But I think that's maybe too unrealistic. But can you see him maybe winning 3 of the 4? Is this Djokovic kind of Grand Slam winning train going to continue in 2020?
Calendar slam is probably too unrealistic. Yeah, definitely mostly because of the French Open. I mean, I'm not sure I can see him beating Team and Nadal there, or maybe only Team, only Nadal. Probably the best chance if he would somehow get only Team. But right now he has so many ranking points that he's probably going to be, at least in the top 2 until the end of the season. So he's not going to meet probably Nadal until the finals in Paris. So maybe if he only had one match to for example, if Nadal lost to Team in the semis, then maybe, because Team would be really worn out. But the calendar slam is obviously really far-fetched. I think he has a fantastic chance to win 3 out of 4. In the past couple of years, we've only really seen him struggle with either injuries or motivation. He's barely losing when he's healthy. And as the youngsters are not that great on grass, there aren't many grass court specialists in Tsitsipas, Medvedev, and Team. Team is not a youngster, but he's definitely not that good on grass. anyway, I think definitely Wimbledon he's the big favorite for that there. Maybe Federer if he can find that best of five, physicality, stamina again. But I don't really see Djokovic keeping it up in Paris. But 3 out of 4, I'd say he has a fantastic chance to do it again.
And in complete contrast, Jim, we've got the women's side of things. Do you see 4 different winners for the Grand Slams? That's actually happened in the last 3 years, I think.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't be surprised if that is the case. Women's tennis being women's tennis, it's at the moment very hard to predict anything with any certainty. So I'm not sure whether I would say definitely it's going to be 4 different winners. Serena Williams could get back to her very best, and then I could see her grabbing a couple, or she could kind of remain slightly struggling and then won't win any. The thing with women's tennis at the moment is that there aren't that many specialists on grass or clay, so you feel like those draws are quite open for the players who really are at home on clay, such as Kiki Bertens. But then there's a lot of players who are at the best on hard courts, so you have very stacked draws in Australia and New York. So yeah, I would say probably the likeliest outcome is that all 4 slams will be won by different players this year.
Interesting. I was just literally researching it just before we started, and I was quite surprised that there was 4 different winners in the last 3 years. Just because I was thinking, obviously, Osaka's won 2 in that time, and a couple of other people have as well, but it was over different years. So, last question then, Damian, before we move on to kind of this week's tournaments. Do you think that the spacing of the Grand Slams needs changing? Because obviously we've got this massive period now where we've got 5 months where there's not any Grand Slams, and then 2 come along at once, and then there's another shorter gap to the US Open. Do you think ideally that would be different?
Frankly, I don't really see any problem with that. I mean, there's a pretty big gap between the Australian Open and the Roland Garros, but we have the Sunshine Double there, so probably the 5th and the 6th biggest events of the year, both men and women too. So also I think the fact that there's only 1 month between Roland Garros and Wimbledon, the fact that you have to transition your game well between the surfaces, I think that really adds to the legacy, to the tradition. The fact that the Channel Slam is so hard to win, I believe it's a brilliant thing, and it would be a shame if someone wanted to. Maybe I obviously wouldn't really have anything against adding, let's say, a week of grass court tennis, maybe a Masters 1000 on grass, but I'm cool with the current spacing. I'm not sure what the arguments of the people against it are.
No, fair enough. That's the view of Damian Cost, everybody. If anyone wants to disagree with that, get in touch via Last Word Tennis on Twitter, or Last Word on Tennis on Facebook, or via the website www.lastwordontennis.com. Always an interesting week, the week after a Grand Slam, in terms of it's always like a few 250 tournaments. Jim, have you got any kind of predictions for title winners or people to watch out for, maybe in the Golden Swing or anything else?
Yeah, I definitely pay close attention to the Golden Swing this year. There's a great piece up on the site by David Gertler, kind of giving a review of last year's action on the Golden Swing, when the seeded players had just an awful showing. I think Dominic Thiem was there last year, amongst some other really good players, Schwartzman of course, and they were barely winning matches. Fabio Fognini, I think, won only 1 match. Dominic Thiem again only won one match. And again, there's some really good players going to be over in South America. The team currently scheduled to be there. I'm sure he will be. Matteo Berrettini, world number 8, he'll be there as well. Schwartzman, as you say, playing in Cordoba this week. So I think it'll be interesting to see if those players who are obviously, generally speaking, really good, high class, high caliber clay court players can put in a better showing. I think it'll be interesting to see what Guido Pella, who actually seems to be, despite his reputation of being a clay court specialist, actually performing better on faster surfaces. Obviously a quarterfinalist at Wimbledon last year. Be interesting to see what him and Diego Schwartzman can do this week in Cordoba, where they'll surely be eager to put in a good showing in front of their home fans.
Thinking about the tournaments this week, Damian, do you have any kind of predictions for what might happen? I know it's possibly a lower brand of tennis than we've been seeing in the last 2 weeks, but can be some interesting matchups in these tournaments.
Well, I'm really excited for the event in Montpellier, for example. There are a couple of players that were supposed to do good to do better at the Australian Open, like Shapovalov, Dimitrov, Goffin. They all disappointed, especially Shapovalov, I think, Dimitrov too. And it's going to be interesting to see how they rebound after that. Also, the event in Pune. This is pretty much like a challenger, so that's what I like. I mean, a lot of players from the second 100 of the ATP rankings will have a good chance to grab their first. For example, today Roberto Marcora, 30-year-old Italian, grabbed his first ATP main draw win. He defeated Lucas Russell in a battle of the qualifiers, and he's gonna play Benoit Paire. Who knows what's going to happen? I mean, with Paire, there's always a big chance for an upset, and Marcora is a very solid player, so there's definitely a lot to look out for. I don't really think I can give you any outright predictions. I mean, these are all pretty much different surfaces than what we've seen in the first month of the year. So it's definitely interesting how these players are gonna transit their game.
Thanks for that. Let's move on to the quiz. Let's see if we can get some of these answers to the quiz question that I set at the start of the podcast. So we were looking for the 10 youngest Grand Slam winners of the Open era. And this is across men and women. And I gave a little bit of a clue that none of them were over 17 years of age when they won the first one. So as always, we'll go from one expert to the next and see how far we can go. I reckon we'll probably get 7 or 8 in a row, and then I think we might get all 10. We'll see. Right, Jim, I'm going to come to you first. Do you want to kick us off with someone?
I hope this doesn't sound really awful, but is Monica Seles in there?
Monica Seles is in there. She won it at 16 years of age, her first one. Damian?
Well, this really isn't easy for me, so I'm trying to look for some answers that I'm quite sure of. Maybe Jennifer Capriati.
Jennifer Capriati is not on the list. I'm looking for. She was 24.
What? Yeah, because she was a French Open semi-finalist at 14, and then she was 10 years. Okay.
Yeah, she hit the top of the game, didn't she? At like a very young age.
Yeah, she was 14 when she reached the French Open semi-finals, and then she waited 10 years. Oh, so that was a fail at the very beginning.
Oh well, you're usually the man that is the go-to man, so we'll forgive you this particular one. We'll go back to Jem.
Couldn't be Maria Sharapova? No, she.
Maria Sharapova is correct. Yeah, she was just 17 and 75 days when she won Wimbledon. Damian?
The pressure is very big on me. Michael Chang maybe was 16 and something when he won the French Open.
Michael Chang is the youngest male champion of all time. He was 17 when he won the 1989 French Open. I'll give you a bit more clues now. There's 2 more men on the list who are both 17, and there are 5. Obviously, that leaves 5 women, 2 16-year-olds and 3 17-year-olds. Jim?
I know Boris Becker won Wimbledon at 17, famously. So did he make it?
Yep, he's the next one on the list. Boris Becker in 1985 was 17 years and 228 days.
Martina Hingis, maybe?
Hingis is the youngest Grand Slam champion of all time. She was 16 and 117 days when she won the 1997 Australian Open. What have we got? 5 left? 5.
So there's one more man. I'm not sure I've got a clue. Who?
If you've been watching the coverage on Eurosport, Jim, then obviously that's a bit of a clue. He's all over. Say that again?
Mats Wilander. He was quite young when he won.
Mats Wilander.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
He was 17 He was 17 when he won the 1982 French